Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us all today as FAU Card gets a chance to sit down and speak a little bit with Dr. Elizabeth Jekanowski. Dr. Jekanowski is an award-winning educator. She has had over 20 years of experience in the field of education, and she is an educator, a scholar, and a presenter. She's been inspired by her own son, Tom. In fact, she has written a book that we are going to be talking about today called Learning and Living with Autism. It's a story of hope. And I think that this is going to be really exciting to hear from her perspective, what it's been like, and wearing all of these different hats as Tom has grown up, and how autism has affected and impacted their lives together. So first, I wanted to go over a little bit of FAU Card and our mission here. So FAU Card provides expert training and consulting services and different local community supports absolutely free of charge for our constituents, because we do have funding that comes from the state legislature. All of our resources and available supports are absolutely free. We do serve all 5 counties in our region, including Palm Beach, Martin County, Okeechobee, Indian River, and St. Lucie counties. We, as I had stated, have all of our services and supports absolutely free of charge for our constituents and for those community members that serve our constituents. So without any further ado, I do want to turn this over and be able to start some of this conversation with Dr. Jekanowski and be able to speak a little bit about what her journey has been like and what it's been like for Tom as well, as he's grown up with autism. So Dr. Jekanowski, one of the first things I wanted to ask you was talking about when you first had suspicion that there may be some sort of disability or some sort of developmental delay with Tom. What were your thoughts?
That's a great question. So at that time, I really knew nothing about typical childhood development. I was in love with being a mom, and he was hitting a lot of the typical milestones, you know, of walking, and a lot of his motor stuff was on time. And I just really wasn't concerned. But after his second birthday, we had a nephew who's actually older than us and a family friend who were trying to figure out a time to tell us how concerned they were that he wasn't speaking, that he wasn't making eye contact, that he didn't play with any toys, that he really wasn't interested in anybody but me, like all these things that were obvious to people around us, but not so much to us. And initially I was very angry. I was very angry at them telling us that our son was not typical or that his development was off. And actually, our nephew went ahead and called the director of ESE for our school district because he was a friend of ours and had talked to her about Tom. And so that made me even more mad, like, how dare he talk about our son? Sure. But it was the best thing that could have happened because from there, we were really able to get into finding out what our options were, what that really could mean for Tom and what options there were. So although initially angry, that kind of changed over to sadness and then kind of changed to being resolved and resolute. Okay, what can we do? What can we do for our son?
And fill me in at that time. What was your background knowledge with child development or any type of language learning or anything like that?
So I did some babysitting as a teenager, and that was about it. I was a professional musician. I was an entertainer. The most that I knew about children were when we did children's jobs or concerts, or when we had families come in with children that would come to dance or come to various events that we were performing at, but really had absolutely no clue. No clue.
So that can definitely be difficult then, I'm sure, because you're relying on these other people's, expertise, and it definitely is jarring. So when they brought up these concerns, did you go to your pediatrician?
So we had just pretty much had his 2-year checkup.
Okay.
And the pediatrician kind of assured us that it might be his personality, why he wasn't talking. He wasn't making any sounds, like he was silent. And, you know, he had a very active, busy older brother, 2 years older than he was. So he said sometimes that happens, you know, they talk for both of them, or, you know, it's just and my husband and I are both talkers. So there's a lot of talking going on in the house, but nothing coming from Tom. So yeah, when I did come back to him, after we had gone through the next year, pretty much, I don't think I checked back in with him before then. He could see it. And he was grateful that we had reached out where we had to early intervention, and that the school district had reached out to us. And then we had in turn reached out to early intervention.
Fantastic. So did the pediatrician make that recommendation for you, or did you have to kind of jump the gun on that one and reach out a little bit more yourself?
So I can't sing the praises enough of public school folks that work in special ed departments. Because it really was the director of ESE that gave us the contact information, because we were on an island 30 miles out to sea. So it became a little bit more challenging also for transportation for these folks to come. But she explained it to me, you know, you need to have an evaluation for early intervention to determine eligibility for their services. And you could probably set that up in the next month or so. And then you're going to get on a waiting list with Boston Children's Hospital that will be funded through your insurance, and you will get a developmental evaluation. It will take all day. And because, again, we're living on an island, we had to plan to get there, stay overnight with friends that had summer homes on Nantucket who were very gracious to us. And Phillips, my husband, spent time with my older son, and I went in for the whole day, the marathon evaluation at Boston Children's Hospital.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, it definitely, they say it takes a village, and it sounds like you had great wraparound supports. But that's a lot of work to seek out all of these people and to know who to go to and what steps to take next. You know, thinking about that, can you describe some of those services and some of those supports? Like, how long was Tom getting them? How soon did you start?
So when we first were alerted to any of this happening, I was already trying to set things up and look for kind of what was already being provided for young children with autism on the mainland, and what was being provided through early intervention. And early intervention at that time was not doing behavioral therapy. They were doing various forms. I can't even remember now all the different types of therapies, but it was basically following and mirroring and seeing the student, like doing what the child was doing, but not intervening behaviorally. And that pendulum swings, and it still swings today in terms of, you know, when do you join them and when do you, you know, challenge them to engage. And for us, I really wanted to go the education route. We went to 3 different schools around the Boston area. We received funding. At that time, we were living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, we had no funds. So really all of this was being funded through early intervention, and also through the Department of Mental Retardation. That was another connection that, again, the director of the ESE department at the public schools connected us with almost immediately. So they provided for our flights and for our boat trips and our ferry rides to get our cars on and off the island to go see these 3 schools. We coordinated visits, the May Center in Chatham, which was exclusively a school for young children with autism. So basically what we did was, when we looked at those programs, I said, okay, this is what I want for a home program. And early intervention said, we don't do that. It's not developmentally appropriate. And I said, but they're doing it in these schools and they're getting results, and there are articles being written. I mean, they're new articles, but this is a very hopeful thing. Well, we can't let you harm your child. And I said, well, I don't believe I would be. Look at these articles. You know, I had all of my stuff, you know, just mama bearing, you know, really not being all that well informed or deeply informed. I really believed that education was the key. Intensive education through a behavioral approach was going to be the key for my nonverbal. And he was really starting to self-harm at that point and really was not learning anything, right? So early intervention relented and funded an intensive ABA program in our home for about 8 months. They paid for the therapists, and we went through a few. It's not for everybody. It's very hard. It's very intense, and people were trained, and we videotaped every session and we critiqued every session. And so that right there is hard on regular human beings. I think we had some extraordinary young people that were really, really willing to work with us. And he did a lot of gains during those 8 months. And then what we did was, we transitioned that into the school system, but not with ABA, but with that approach and with keeping everybody on the same page. So we did not, ABA was pretty much the 8 months at home. And that was about 30 to 40 hours a week. And then we had speech and language for an hour a week. We had OT and we had PT. And we had some really great people. We had some really great people that hung in there with us during those 8 months.
That's excellent. And it is a lot of work, just like you said.
Yes.
I mean, this is not only a lot of work for the therapist and for Tom, but for you as parents and as family members as well. So it's a lot. Is there any one thing that sticks out that was really, a superior or impactful type of therapy or education as Tom was, starting out here?
Yeah, I really do credit the applied behavioral analysis that helped him to learn. Like, he became ready to learn when he went into preschool. Prior to that applied behavioral analysis, which this is our consultant, Marilyn from the May Center, working with Tom in his bedroom. Their bedrooms became classrooms during the day, or, his became, but, and she really taught us too. She invited us into the sessions. And I learned a lot about using less language, because I said we're talkers. He needed us to say less, and he needed us to follow through on what we said, to connect it to concrete action. And then we needed to be consistent. We were entertainers. There was nothing consistent about my life up to that point. I was like, oh yeah, routine, procedures, like consistency, that would really teach him too. They taught us so much. The therapists that came into our home taught us so much.
That's excellent. I'm happy to hear that was so supportive for all of you,
Yes.
So how did you first hear about those red flags? So when you were kind of putting all this together, this was a lot of, leaps of faith, but also just diving in and learning all you can and figuring it out along the way. How did you first kind of connect those dots and see those red flags in Tom?
Well, we had our family friend that I first met with after I was so mad at our nephew. I walked the boys downtown and bumped into a family friend, and that family friend brought me to her aunt. Her aunt was very involved with the autism parent groups and advocacy, had an adult son with autism. She had pamphlets from the Autism Society of America that had a checklist on the back. And I remember bringing it home and reading it to my husband at night, and we just kept checking off the boxes. And I was like, oh my gosh. Up to that point, again, I had no idea. I had no idea what was normal, what was atypical, what was autism, what was not. I know a lot more now about those red flags for sure.
Well, and I am just always impressed at how much you have your entire family, honestly, after reading the book and knowing you a little bit more, but really how you all have really dove in and learned so much about not only what your son needs, but just autism in general, and all of these different interventions and approaches and things like that. How did you learn all of this? Were there parent groups you became a part of? Were these classes that you were taking, or a bunch of reading you were doing? How did you absorb all this information?
So yes to all of the above. So what I was laughing about when I was getting ready to talk to you today was the fact that computers were just starting to come into play, the big computers, right? And a friend had bought us one, because again, we were living paycheck to paycheck. But so a lot of my information came to me through actual books and pamphlets and articles, but also a bit through the internet. It was just starting, and we got a free account through the school, I believe. But the Department of Mental Retardation, as well, so early intervention provided this service called Center Base, which is quite a bit in the book, because every Friday we would go to Center Base. And they would also provide support for the siblings, which was brilliant and cannot be understated. You cannot, I mean, it's natural because you become so absorbed in caring for your child that needs so much, but you cannot, forget about your other child or your other children, as your spouse too. Like, you just can't leave all that in the dust, in helping your child. But they used to have parent support groups that would meet concurrently while the children were with the therapists in the other room in a center-based therapy. They would bring all the kids together under the age of 3 and throw all their therapists in there on Friday morning, the OTs, the PTs, the speech and language, the teachers. Not my behavioral therapist, but I was excited because they were engaging him and they weren't letting him go off. Like, they would go with him. They would try to engage him with sensory things. And we had a trained psychologist, certified psychologist, or that would moderate a parent group. And it was not a free for all, but it was free formed. Like, there was never an agenda. We got together and we just all started talking because we all we knew that each other knew. And so we would share what was going on. We would share our frustrations. We would celebrate our successes. We would laugh. We would cry. I said, at some point I said, we laughed about really inappropriate things that if people came into the room, they would be like, that's not funny. And we'd be like, but it is funny. You just don't know. Like, it's a release to laugh with these people about things that other people would be like, what are they laughing about? But, and we created a bond over those 8 months. We stayed in touch from that point forward. But, I really did not connect with a strictly autism support group. After that, for the most part, it became my family. It became my church community. It became my work family, which was also part of that school system. And then the school system down here in Florida. Our family's always been very connected to the communities that we've been in. And I think that that's really important. You don't have to be an extrovert in order to really tap into friendships and relationships with your community, because ultimately that's where we wanted our son to end up, was plugged into and a part of the communities wherever we were. So we wanted as much of that natural support as possible.
Yes. And I think you said that beautifully, to have that sense of community and to build your own community around that to support you all. It's huge. It really is. What do you think was the most, I know we discussed that ABA was probably the most impacting piece for Tom. What was the biggest support for you and for your family throughout all of this?
I think for us, to have respite, to really reach out and ask for respite. Sometimes we got funding in the very beginning time to pay for a babysitter. And then when that was no longer available, once, we were making a little bit more money, we actually got jobs at that point, day jobs, we used to call them, with benefits. And but our friends would step in. And so we tried to schedule a regular night every week to go on a date. And even if it was an hour and a half or 2 hours, usually 2 hours or something. So I think that was really important. Also, again, spending designated time with our other son and, leaving with him alone and listening and talking to him. He was only 2 years older. And involving him as much as possible in all the work. I mean, he was very excited to push Tom on the swing in between sessions and to jump on the trampoline. And the teachers loved him, as much as they loved Tom. When they came to work with Tom, sometimes they would work with him as well. So I think it's really, just remembering to take a break. It is a marathon. We've talked about that. It's not a sprint. You're going to be in it for the long term. Just take care of yourself along the way. Take care of yourself and your family.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. How did you This seems like such a simple question of how did you maintain hope throughout all of this? But you know, reading over your book and talking about having a child with such significant delays that you were facing with Tom, and I know we're kind of glossing over that, but the severe delay in speech, right? The significant behaviors and not knowing how to play, not knowing how to interact. You know, it's difficult to kind of see that the forest beyond the trees, right? Like you're facing all of these daily things. How did you maintain that hope for the long run?
That's a great question. And it's something that I've thought about myself as well. I think for us, you know, we had this almost contradictory set of goals for him. Like the big goal was for him to wake up in the morning and to have purpose and to be connected and to love and to be loved. And everything else was a bonus, you know, and almost back chaining that. But I think, you know, I think staying in the day, having a big goal like that, not being specific, but having like what everybody wants for their kids, right? Staying in the day. We really, in the very beginning, followed the data very closely. And so we really were celebrating small, tiny victories. And I think it's important to stay focused on what is going well and what's positive, even though you have to be a realist and you have to keep pushing. But, and again, it's that dichotomy, you know, I think too, holding on to hope, you know, we also tried to exercise every day. And at one point for a few years when we were still on the island, I would walk the boys in and out of school because Tom was, we were using food reinforcers a little too much. And I was like, oh, we need to maybe like do some more exercising here. And so we started walking and we walked almost every day. And again, I think, you know, exercise is a natural way to kind of keep your spirits up or to reset when, because you all have days when you're tired, when you don't feel good. I mean, gosh, what about when you get the flu or you get, I mean, yeah, it happens, right? You know, trying to eat healthy and then giving ourselves a break when we didn't, when we all went to the donut shop and indulged in that and enjoyed it. But I think really having a big goal, but then celebrating the small stuff and really trying to stay in the day and trying to stay positive and trying to stay grateful. We certainly had no idea that he was going to end up where he was, nor were we expecting that, nor did we need that to be well at the time. We had no idea what he was capable of, really, truly.
Tell me, you talk about, you know, having that normalcy and just, you know, we want what every child or what we want for every child, right? We want him to feel that community and that connection to community. How did you really encourage Tom making friends, initiating friendships and maintaining those friendships? How did you foster that?
So a big piece of that, other than being in inclusive classroom settings, which was very important to us from the very beginning in pre-K on, was also to engage him in whatever capacity he could engage were extracurricular activities. So in elementary school, he was on the soccer team. Did he ever hit the ball? I don't know. I don't even remember, but we got him in his uniform and he was on the team. And when they were running, he was running. And when they, you know, I mean, I don't even know, but that was an important part of continuing the relationships he was building in the classroom out onto the field. And then, you know, Little League, when we got to, well, he was the ball boy first on his older brother's team. So elementary school was that, you know, getting him to all the extracurricular school activities, the carnivals and the things that they did, bringing him to those. In middle school, it was band and it was very limited. I think he probably held the clarinet for a while and just looked at it. And, you know, the teacher was very patient with him and always made him feel like he was part of and he was growing. And, you know, he did religious education classes, you know, and I think that was another way for him to feel part of the community. What do you mean? No, you can't support somebody with his needs. Guess what? I'll join you in class. Or, you know, I'll put somebody in there that can help him out if I can't be in there at that time. I even wrote a curriculum. Again, where did I get that from? I don't know. I modeled after a couple of the curriculums that were there. I said, well, we could do that, right? You know, we can make some food. We can, and I found other kids in our church that were kind of on the periphery because their kids were not able to engage in religious ed. So again, you know, and all these things just kind of built one after another. Again, not with a predetermined goal. They just kind of kept building. High school was marching band. Oh my goodness, Tom loved marching band at the high school. And then he did competitive chorus. And when they went on, you know, competitions around the country, I knew some of the chaperones that were going to be there, and they'd be like, I've got Tom in my group, you know, just want to let you know, you can talk to him every night or whenever you need to talk to him, like was my connection. And I went as a chaperone as well, once, I think. And I was like, Tom, I'm going to lead your group. Well, we're going to San Diego Zoo. I'm going to be your group leader. No, that's okay, Mom. You go with the other group. Like, I'm good. I was like, okay, well, you know, and inside I'm like, yes, this is so typical to not want your mom around. Like, I was ecstatic. But, you know, that has always been the way, and continues to be the way, was through structured activities. And then also when he graduated from high school, my older son showed him how to get signed up to Facebook. And he still stays connected with high school friends through Facebook, loves it. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say that we like engineered a lot of things outside of those extracurricular activities, because we really didn't. Tom went to his prom single, but had a ball and danced the night away. And all my friends that were there were taking pictures and videos and sending them to me during prom. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. It's been great.
Yeah. How did you, so after high school, Tom went off to college.
He sure did.
How did you support his success in college? It's such a difficult time for anyone to learn all of those things, right? You know, when to wake up and how to get things done. How did you support him now that he was all by himself?
So we had really, again, been preparing for not knowing he was going to college until, you know, we're bringing his brother to Florida State. He goes, I'd like to come here. And we were like, you want to go to college? Well, yeah, I'd like to go to college. So getting him ready along the way. So he was learning how to do laundry and learning to do dishes in the dishwasher, and even shopping from probably middle school on, even late elementary. I would expect him to make his bed when we did laundry, and taught him how to fold his clothes and even started putting clothes in the laundry in high school, you know, and running the machine. And I think though, when we were getting ready for college, I reached out to our doctor and asked to write a letter so that Tom could get a single room, because he still hums and he still paces, and he doesn't do it all the time. He's very deliberate about when he chooses to do that. But I wanted him to have his own room to kind of decompress and not worry about keeping a roommate up or having to even explain himself. Like, this is what I need to do. Like, so we did get him a single room, and all the way through college. We paid a little extra, but it was well worth it. And then I also, he applied for summer semester so he could start earlier when there's a lot less students on campus. And that I practiced 2 days with him doing the routes, walking. We had a schedule. So we looked at where the buildings were, where the classes were, because, you know, he still learns through explicit instruction. He learns a lot quicker, but he still, you know, kind of leaned on me for a couple of days. And I did the gradual release method. Like, I'm going to do it, then we're going to do it, and then I'm going to fade out and I'm going to follow you. So that's pretty much we did over the couple of days to get him used to that. And just get him used to the routines. Where's the cafeteria? What do you do at the cafeteria? Where do you swipe your card? And at Florida State, they had this lovely, lovely woman who was there forever and would tell all the kids how much she loved them, and she would learn their names from their badges. And so that we were very fortunate. And plus his older brother was there. That's another support that was there already. So he had his brother on campus for 2 years. So yeah, those were some of the things that we did, but we knew that, you know, he had a lot of independent skills already developed from home, but then transferring them and having the familial support up there, I think was a big help. 6 hours is a ways away. Like I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be okay? He's going to be 6 hours away. But yeah, I survived.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I know it's been a lot and you guys have put in a lot of effort, but it sounds like Tom has done wonderfully well. I know that I really appreciate you sharing so much about you and Tom and your journey. Is there anything else that you would want to share or any fun stories that you'd like to share with some of the parents that may be watching?
I'd love to do that. I think another thing that's important is to keep your sense of humor, or if you don't have one, get one, because laughter is so important, and to see the humor in things along the way. When I went to write the book, I relied a lot on pictures and programs and artwork and things that would spark memories. And one of the things that Tom did was the summer camp. And because we wanted him engaged in activity 12 months a year, we wanted him in a structure with support. So this was summer camp. This is chapter 7 on page 61 of the book. Tom began attending summer camp after 2nd grade in 2002. And so every day they would ride on the bus. The school bus would take the campers from a home base of the camp, which was at the middle school, to different beaches for lunch in the afternoon and then bring them back for activity. Sometimes they go to the community pool, but every day they were in that bus. And the director's husband, Chuck, had a wonderful sense of humor and enjoyed frequent bantering with the campers when he was driving them around. So each time the bus jostled over one of these holes, the campers would shout in unison, "Thanks for the bump, Chuck." One summer day, while going over a pothole in the family car, we heard Tom shout, "Thanks for the bump, Chuck." And sometimes even today, after all these years, the 4 of us will be in the car together, even as adults. Like in this picture, we were in the car together a few times. And if we go over a bump, we'll all say, "Thanks, Chuck." So I just, and these were Tom's thoughts. So at the end of every chapter, I think what I love too about this book was when I told Tom I was going to write it, asking for permission before I said I was going to write it, I said, I think it would be really neat if you wrote little bits in the book, comments. He said, well, I don't really remember much. Well, even if you don't remember much, like, what are your thoughts on hearing what happened during different parts of your life? And this is what he says. There are a few memories I have of Murray Camp. I remember having a fit when I couldn't be on the same team as Patrick, that's his older brother. Now, this is pretty much what I call a non-issue. In addition, I also remember a scavenger hunt when I think I found a rooster of some kind and that the Rookie movie was coming out in the movies. Murray Camp was a great way to explore Nantucket Island. It also let me see Joe Zito's cool puppet shows at Children's Beach. Fond memories. Oh, and Mac's Place. So I just, Tom is still not much of a conversationalist. And I still have to really probe to get a lot of details or information about things. But he writes beautifully. He writes beautifully. And when he does speak, it's really from the heart. And yeah, he has a good life today. He has a really good life today. And I'm really grateful because it does take a village and it is a marathon. And if you're just beginning, hang in there, whatever the outcomes are, everybody's outcomes are going to be different. There's no cookie cutters formula for a good life. There are basic principles that take a lot of work over a long time with a lot of good people. And just enjoy the days, enjoy the journey as you're going along. There is a lot to enjoy as well. And so that's really what I want to say to people, is just to hold on to hope, to stay positive, to work together, and always remember to take care of yourself, not just at the end of the week or the month or the year, but like on a regular basis. Take care of yourselves. And that's really what I hope the book will offer to people is some encouragement, some affirmation, some inspiration. I read a lot of these books. Like I said, the computer was brand new, so I really did rely on the printed word for inspiration, and it did help when I was looking at my little nonverbal head banging. no eye contact little baby boy, that, things were possible. They were possible. It was possible for him to have a life, and he does.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you so much for sharing that. I think that again, it's very scary. I mean, just to say that it's very scary as a parent to have to embark upon this journey and go through all this and know who to turn to and how to turn to people. And I really appreciate you sharing all of your experiences. Your book is phenomenal, and it reads that way as well, of just an outpouring of your gratitude and your story, and I think that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that message of hope, and sharing with us from all of your different perspectives, not only now working for the school district and all of those pieces, but as the mom too, and as a family member. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Deb.
Absolutely. So for those of you, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that Dr. Jakinowski has inspired you all a bit and given you a little bit of that hope as well. If you need any other supports, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to FAU CARD, where our continued supports can be provided to you and to your family for that free of charge. And thank you so much.